All right, hello and welcome back to another episode of Just a Girl from Cleveland. This is episode 158. Apologies for coming to you a day late this week. I was not able to record Tuesday night at my usual time because I was at the Cavs' first preseason game. We have Cavs basketball back, which is very exciting. Look, they lost, and I know it's just preseason, so you can't take too much away from it. But I will say I was riding fully on the Evan Mobley hype train after watching the minutes that he played in that game. Looks bigger, stronger, more confident. I really feel like he's going to have a good year. So looking forward to that. And hey, look, watching a Cavs preseason game, even though they lost, felt way better than watching a Browns game. So I'll take it. I also went to game 2 of the Guardians ALDS series on Monday night. Or Monday afternoon, actually. Unfortunately, lost that as well. So I am 0-2 this week. Probably going to go 0-3 because I am going to be in Philly this weekend for the Browns game. So hitting all 3 Cleveland sports in 1 week might be taking a loss in all of them, which would be very Cleveland of me. But look, still fun and exciting to be at all of these sporting events. The Guardians game was still so much fun, such a fun environment to be in. Playoff baseball is just a different feeling, and I really enjoyed being there. Obviously, we were very much in that game until it got towards the very end, and then he wasn't classe for a night, which he's allowed to be, I guess, but it's unfortunate that it comes in the ALDS. So Guardians lost again tonight, and not heading down a good path here for the rest of this ALDS series. We'll see if they're able to, win tomorrow and take it to 5 games. I'm not sure how confident I feel because the offense has been so stagnant since game 1, where it was 7-0. It felt like we could do everything, and we just haven't had it since then. So that was what was keeping me busy earlier this week and caused me to record a day late. But maybe it's for the better so that I can collect more of my thoughts on what else I can possibly say about the Cleveland Browns that I have not already said. I feel like every show that I've been going on for the last few weeks, I feel like a broken record when talking about this team because I think I said the same thing last week on here. It's the same things over and over, the same bad things, the same negative things over and over. And there's only so many different ways that I can talk about it. So it's frustrating for those of us creating content to be able to talk about this team when, you just want to find any silver lining and any good things that you can say. And it's just really hard to be positive about the team overall right now at this point in time. Okay, so let's get into just some of my thoughts on this team, that game, all of the above. Look, I don't want to accuse professional players of not trying, but I feel like these receivers do not want to play with Deshaun Watson and they do not believe in him as a quarterback. And I usually am not someone who makes statements like that because I'm like, these guys, they care about their job. They care about going out there every Sunday and trying and doing well. But I do think so much of any sport is that mental side. And if you don't trust the guy who's throwing you the ball to be able to do that the right way, I feel like even if it is 1% less, like your effort and your tenacity that you're bringing to your game is just not going to be there as much as it would be if you had Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback and you believe that he can make the most of any moment. Like I do think that it affects the mind of the guys, even if they aren't outwardly trying to not play as well or not give their all. Something in them just feels less competitive when they don't believe in the guy who is leading the team. So I'm starting to really feel that way because nothing else makes sense for the way some of these receivers have been playing with the drops and all of the issues that have been there, that they're just not as locked in as they would be if they had a belief in this team and where they were going. And look, obviously, you know me, I'm not just blaming any one part of this game. It's not by any means just the receivers or just Watson. There's a lot going wrong. But look, like Watson is still not getting, he's not doing what he needs to do. He is not getting through all of his reads on the field. He is missing wide open guys repeatedly. If you go and watch any guy out there who does film breakdowns for the Cleveland Browns, you will see dozens of times, it feels like, throughout a game where he is just not seeing the field. And it's really hard to do anything when your quarterback is not seeing the field. I genuinely want to ask the people who want to fully blame Kevin Stefanski for this and the play calling for this, what exactly do you think another coach would be able to get out of Deshaun Watson that Kevin Stefanski is not getting out from him? Like, I don't know how any play caller is going to solve all of the injuries on the offensive line, the just poor run game overall, the lack of talent at running back that they have, the fact that the quarterback cannot get through his reads and make the correct throw throughout a game. Let me know if you know of a coach and a play caller that is capable of making that like a top 5-10 offense in the league. I would love to hear that, because people seem to think that if you just replace Kevin, then all of the issues are going to be solved. And I don't think that he's the main problem. And look, I don't think any one of these issues, if you take away that problem, it's going to solve everything. Just like I don't think if you get rid of Deshaun Watson and put someone else in, that'll solve everything. I think it'll be better, but I don't think it's going to solve everything. I feel the same way about Kevin Stefanski, and I don't know why people think that he is the root of all of the evil and the problems within this organization. I'm having a hard time blaming the guy who is calling the plays. At the end of the day, like, these players are grown adults. These are not middle schoolers and high schoolers. Deshaun Watson has been playing football for a very long time. And he is actually now in a system that is very similar to what he did when he was in Houston. So it's something he should be more comfortable with. And he is clearly not comfortable being out there on the field. So I just don't know how changing who the head coach of this team is going to fix that within Deshaun Watson. And look, like, I want to give Kevin props for something that I feel like people are not talking about as much. And that's the fact that he brought Ken Dorsey in. And I don't think a lot of offensive play callers would do something like this, to bring in a guy that's supposed to fit more of the skill set of the quarterback than the offense that you are currently running. What they're currently doing is not something Kevin is 100% comfortable with. It's not such a departure from what he does, but it's also not his typical offense. And I think he deserves props for at least trying to do something that is supposed to fit the quarterback better than what he is comfortable and previously used to. I don't know a lot of play callers that would do that for the betterment of the rest of the team, or trying to do that for the betterment of the rest of the team. Obviously, it hasn't been better for the team, but that was the goal in doing all of that. And I think he deserves credit for that. I was searching around earlier and I found some quotes from Ken Dorsey from before the season that I want to read right now to show you the mindset of Ken Dorsey, of what they were trying to do with this offense going into the season, what the approach was, because I think it's important to remember that. So I'm going to read all of this word for word. It's kind of long, but just listen in. Dorsey said, "I'm excited to see him out there and excited to watch him kind of fly around and be himself. And that's all we want from him. No more, no less. Go out and make good decisions. Everything else will take care of itself. The biggest thing that you want to do for these guys is not take away their instincts. I heard a coach say one time that it's like you have a box, and inside that box is your footwork, your reads, everything that just is the playbook is in that box. Well, some of the best quarterbacks who have been out there are the ones who step out of that box. Those are the guys who make those plays work when they step out of that box, either with a scramble or, hey, why'd you throw it there? That's not part of the progression, versus, well, I saw this. They just instinctively have that in them. So there's that balance of staying within the system while also not handicapping them from what they instinctively do best. He's going to make some exceptional plays for us that no one else in this league can make. The great thing about Deshaun is he can do that outside of this just normal system, and then he can get back and work a progression and rip it to an outlet or a third progression in the read just as equal. So I think it's just a balance you have to strike with these guys and make sure you don't put handcuffs on them in too many ways. Really tough to read that because that is not even close to the player that we have seen from Deshaun Watson. They brought this player in thinking that he was a top 5, 10 quarterback in the league, the type of quarterback that Ken Dorsey described in there that is going to think outside the box, is not going to be limited, is going to use his instincts to make plays. And that is a lot of what Dorsey has brought to this offense, because Deshaun previously in his time in Houston had shown that that is the type of player that he is. And it's just a reminder to everyone that that is no longer the player that Deshaun Watson is. And that is why this offense is not functioning for Deshaun Watson, because he's not capable of doing those things that he used to do and that this offense needs in order for a quarterback to be able to thrive in it. They didn't want to put handcuffs on them because he was supposed to, like he mentioned in that one quote, rip it to an outlet on a third progression in the read just as equal as doing things within the normal system. He's not seeing those things. Like, I don't know how to explain it any other way than they've tried two different routes. People didn't like last year within the Kevin Stefanski offense that was not allowing him to have the creativity that he used to have in Houston. People said, you got to open it up. You got to allow him to be that type of quarterback. And so that is exactly what Kevin did in bringing in Ken Dorsey. And Deshaun has proven he is not that type of quarterback and is not capable of doing that. So that is, it's a frustrating place to be and figuring out how to move forward, because they gave him the freedom that he wanted and needed. And it's just, he doesn't have the skill set in order to operate with that level of freedom. And look, like, obviously for, Kevin in general as a play caller and all of the guys who are behind the scenes putting this offense together, it's extremely hard to put an offense together and come up with the right play calls when the team is constantly putting themselves in bad situations with the drops, the penalties, Deshaun not being able to do his job and missing wide open guys and not executing the plays that are there to be made based on how the offense is set up. I don't even know what you can say to the play callers at that point when all of those things are working against them. So really, really tough place to be. So I think the conversation now that everyone is having is like, where do we go from here? Like, something has to give. You can't keep going on like this. I obviously don't think they can move on from Kevin after they just gave him an extension this offseason. I really think that would be a crazy move for them to do that. I know they just extended Barry too, so I don't see that happening. I think if they were to get rid of one, it would probably be Barry over Stefanski, but I just don't know how, after extending both of them just a couple months ago, you make the decision to get rid of them. Things are going to get really, really ugly if this team loses in Philly on the road and then comes home for that game against the Cincinnati Bengals. And if they have even one bad play in that stadium, I'm actually concerned for how the fans in that stadium are going to react. Like, they're going to be throwing things. It is not going to be a pretty scene. It's going to be an extremely hostile environment. And that should probably be in the minds of Jimmy Haslam and Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski right now on what are you going to do when this team comes back home, because they've been on the road for a couple of weeks now, and that's, allowed them some distance from the fan base that is angrier than I have seen it. I don't know if maybe even in my life. Like, this is a different anger than the 1-15 0-16 Cleveland Browns. This is a different type of anger because the expectations are so high and we're coming in with talent like those teams. Like the production on the field is like those teams, but the talent actually is way higher than that. So that I don't know what it's going to look like if this team comes back and Deshaun Watson is still the starting quarterback, and if no moves have been made, nothing has changed. Like, I don't know how it's going to go in that stadium. It's going to be really bad. Look, I know everyone's like, okay, they can't cut him because they paid him all this guaranteed money. They have to pay him regardless. So I think at a certain point, you just have to start doing what's best for the team, regardless of the money, because they're going to have to pay it whether he's here or whether he's not here. And look, they're going to have to pay someone he's gone anyways, even if he plays through this entire contract, because they've pushed so much of that money forward. They're going to be paying for him for a while because there's no way, obviously, they're giving him any sort of extension at this point in time. That would be the most insane thing for them to do. I think that's pretty much out of the question at this point in time. So I really think at this point, you just have to do what is best for this football team, regardless of the money that you have invested in the quarterback. A lot of the conversations I feel like online and just in general have been about who should take the fall for bringing Watson into this organization. Is it Jimmy? Is it AB? Is it Kevin? And look, I don't think we may know someday. I don't know if we'll ever fully know how all of that went down, 3 years ago when the choice was made. I don't know how little or how much Jimmy was involved. I see a lot of people saying like it was all Jimmy, Kevin and AB had nothing to do with it, which I don't think that's realistic. I do think they wanted to bring Watson in. I don't want to let them off the hook completely. But I do wonder at this point if Jimmy is wanting them to keep him around because of the investment and the bet that they made on this being so large that Jimmy's like, you got to try a little bit longer. I could see his involvement being more now. But I don't want to let, the GM of this team completely off the hook for the move and just say it was all the owner, because I do think both him and Kevin were interested in that type of quarterback. We know that, prior to Andrew Berry's time in Cleveland, he had an interest in a quarterback like Deshaun Watson and that style of play, and had made that, publicly known on, the type of quarterback that he liked. So I just think it's not fair to say that it was all just Jimmy, because I do think that they were interested in it as well, and they need to also take some of the blame for it going poorly then. This week has been weird watching, I think, all of the media availability for the team. I can barely even watch it because I just end up being so frustrated. Kevin saying that he hasn't even considered benching Watson, which, look, I wouldn't expect him to admit that in his media availability. First of all, he's always very closed off. Second, he's not going to show his hands, for what he's going to do until he actually makes that decision and makes that move. He's not going to be like, yeah, I'm thinking about it. Like, that's going to divide the team even more and make things worse. So I think it's crazy to think that he was going to say something, but I really wish he was just making that decision now so that he could say that and we can move forward. Pretty crazy also to see Deshaun saying he hasn't seen any of the calls from fans for him to be benched because he's not online, which is a massive lie, because he is about half of Brown's Twitter blocked and is very much aware of what people think of him and the perception of him. He is very much online. So I think that's interesting for him to be saying that he sees what people are saying about him. And I do think it affects him. And how would it not? Of course, other people's words are going to affect you. And I think that's been proven over the last couple of years that he has a hard time dealing with criticism and does let it affect how he performs on the field and how he thinks of himself as a player. Okay, so yeah, the Browns are in a bad place right now. Like I said, I'm going to Philly this week, so I'm fascinated to see how all of this is going to go. It's honestly two teams that very much hate themselves right now and are disappointed in the products that they're putting out on the field and want changes to be made. So I think it's just going to be a commiseration moment for both of these fan bases. I'm looking forward to commiserating with the Philly fan base, which I feel like I feel similar to them in a lot of ways. So I think maybe it'll be a therapeutic experience, if anything. We'll see. Their baseball team has had their struggles too. So we can all just bond together over sports teams repeatedly failing us again and again. Okay, so let's get into the game picks for week 6. First of all, my record last week, 8-6. Pretty good, not too bad. I nailed a couple that were, not expected underdogs, so I felt pretty good about that. But let's make my week 6 game picks. I can't believe it's already week 6. I'm like, every year it goes so fast, and I try to hold on to it, but it goes so fast every year. All right, first we've got 49ers Seahawks. I am taking the Seahawks. Jaguars versus Bears. I'm taking the Bears. Cardinals versus Packers. Sneaky, the Cardinals have done some interesting things this season. I think that's going to be a good game. I'm actually going to take the Cardinals on it, which might be, I don't know where the line is on that. I feel like that might be controversial, but who knows. Colts versus Titans, those divisional games for that division are always interesting. I'm taking the Colts. Texans versus Patriots, I have the Texans. CJ Stroud, man, balling out, all things considered. The rest of his team they're struggling. The rest of that offense isn't making things very easy for him, but he's doing what we thought we would see from Deshaun Watson, making the most of every situation, elevating his team. All of those things are happening for CJ Stroud, which is really cool to see. Buccaneers versus Saints. I'm taking the Saints. Browns versus Eagles. I can't take the Browns. I'm taking the Eagles. I know this is like a game of two teams struggling, like I mentioned, but I just don't have any faith in this Browns offense to get anything going. So I'm taking the Eagles. Commanders versus Ravens. I am taking the Commanders. I feel like this might be kind of crazy. I don't know. But I am on the Commanders hype train right now. I think the Ravens have definitely shown moments of struggling. I do think that, the Ravens defense could give the Commanders a tough time, but I don't know. I feel like that's just a fun underdog-ish pick to make. I don't know what the line is on any of these either, so I'm assuming they're an underdog, but I don't know for sure. Chargers versus Broncos. I'm taking the Broncos. Steelers versus Raiders. I'm taking the Steelers. Lions versus Cowboys. I am taking the Lions. Falcons versus Panthers. I have the Falcons. Bengals versus Giants. I would like the Bengals to lose more, so I'm taking the Giants. And Bills versus Jets. Jets' first head coach firing of the season. Robert Saleh is gone. Seems like that was probably the call of Aaron Rodgers, but who knows? So first coach firing pretty early on, after week 5. It's a brutal place to be. So yeah, definitely taking the Bills there. Okay, that is all I have for you guys today. Sorry, there's no optimism. Sorry, I'm being so repetitive, but I'm truly running out of words to describe what we are watching week in and week out. It's not fun. It is so frustrating as someone who loves talking about this team and really does try to look for the positives. Like, I feel like if you listen to me talk on this, I'm not a rash person to make big statements until I truly get to the point of feeling a certain way. Like, I try to be even keeled. And I'm never the first to have a take, and that's because I like to take my time and think through things before, making any judgment calls on it. But it's at the point where I am just, I feel like there's no other choice than to do some more dramatic things than I would usually say because of how bad things are. So we'll see what the Cleveland Browns decide to do. Not going to get my hopes up, but we'll keep our eyes peeled. If anything, if this game goes as bad as I think it's going to go, we could see something happening in the next week. So we'll just have to watch. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you could please subscribe on the YouTube, comment on the YouTube, leave a review or rating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all that good stuff. Share with a friend. Thank you guys so much for listening. And as always, even when it's so hard to say it, go Browns.